Beginning that our class will grow. Everybody's invited to invite others who they think would benefit from these Wednesday morning two-part series. This will be 9 weeks. 9 weeks is the first semester. I want to acknowledge Torah Anytime, as Torah Anytime has sent one of their videographers who lives a little bit far away from here to be able to participate with us this morning. Thank you, Nisanel, for making the trip. And we're thrilled to be able to have this opportunity of L'chun Ranana. Again, this is in loving memory of Rebbetzin Evelyn Rothman, who passed away just a couple of months ago. The title of this class is entitled The Seven Shepherds. The Seven Shepherds sounds like it should be the name of a novel, a poem, but those of us that had the joys of celebrating Sukkot just a couple of weeks ago know that on the 7 nights of Sukkot, we have a tradition of inviting historic guests into our Sukkah. On the first night we invite Avraham, on the second night we invite Yitzchak, and this is called Ushpizin. All 7 nights we invite a different one of the 7 shepherds. Who are these 7 shepherds? The 7 shepherds on the sheet in front of you, number 1, are Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, and David. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, and David. They, together with their wives, the shepherdesses, have shepherded the Jewish people throughout the millennia to help us get to where we are today. This requires us to take a step back and to consider what is the function of the Torah for the Jewish people in particular and the world generally. What are we supposed to be learning from the Torah? Well, we certainly can be learning history, world history, Jewish history. That's a little bit about what the previous class was about in understanding historical analysis and much more regarding Megillat Esther. That's true, but that's not all it is. It's also an ethical masterpiece. It teaches us appropriate behavior, the same way that our forefathers and mothers taught us how to interact one with another in so many ways. When we blow it up, focus in on the intricacies of their behavior, as something called the koach hatziyur, the imagery, the focusing in, so too, it's an ethical masterpiece, but that's not all it is. It's a law book. Yeah. We've got 613 mitzvot, 248 positive, 365 negative. And amidst those mitzvot, those commandments, there's a myriad of laws on how to fulfill those commandments. But that's not all it is, because if it was, we wouldn't have the first 50 chapters of Genesis, which have pretty much only 3 laws in the whole 50 chapters. So what is the Torah there to do for us? It says at the end of the first passage, the first parasha, Zeh Sefer Toldos Adam. This is the book of mankind. When you read about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, you are not only learning about your family, which you are, you're learning about yourselves. Each of us are the same genetics. There's something called physical genetics and something called spiritual genetics. Okay? Now, what goes beyond the scope of this class this morning is a concept called the spheros. Spheros, everybody knows the word sphera from the counting of the Omer. Sphira to Omer, the counting of the Omer. But the spheros are a Kabbalistic term, l'saper, of expression, of reflecting God's essence into the world. God reflects His essence into the world. Otherwise, how are we meant to learn who and what God is? We are ephemeral, God is eternal. We are physical, corporeal, and God is spiritual. It is only through His midos, through His attributes, and through His essence, through His expressions. Each one of the 7 shepherds reflected one of the 7 expressions of God's essence. And therefore, we're going to take at least the next 9 sessions. We'll see how far we get. It might extend into the next set. On who these personalities were, what they brought to the world, what we need to learn from them, who we are because of them, and how we need to model ourselves after them. The Talmud states that a Jew should say to themselves, Ad masai agia, until when will I reach the behavior patterns of our father Abraham? You know, my Rebbe says, or read it in a book also, that years ago, if somebody had a grandfather, a great-grandfather whose name was Abraham, I don't know if they would name their child Abraham. Now there's a lot of Avrams in the world. But Abraham's so Jewish. Who would name their kid Abraham? Abraham. You have no idea what Avraham Avinu brought to the world. So let's begin. In the first 3 lines after the more than, we have the 7 shepherds of Israel, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Yosef, and David. And then we have what they represent and what they brought to the world. Abraham brought chesed. Chesed means loving kindness. I'm just going to do the first 3 because I don't want to bore us. But we'll get to all of them. Yitzchak is Gevura, which means strength or restraint. And Yaakov is Tiferes, which is splendor, truth, Torah, the confluence of both kindness and restraint. How did these shepherds get to be shepherds of Israel? Was there a job application? Craigslist? How on earth did God choose these shepherds? Now, it is fascinating that physically all 7 of these people were actually shepherds as well. Okay? Not just shepherds of Israel. We say that a person of clergy is a shepherd, but they actually were shepherds. So there's a passage in the Medrash, both in Medrash Rabbah as well as in the Tanchuma, that I have had translated for us today, and I shall read. And it speaks particularly about Moshe, and I believe there's on David as well. Our teachers have said, once while Moshe, our teacher, was tending his father-in-law's flock, even then fathers-in-laws gave sons-in-law a job, one of the sheep ran away. That's pretty normal. Moshe ran after it until it reached a small shaded place. There the lamb came across a pool and began to drink. As Moshe approached the lamb, he said, "Oi, I didn't know you ran away because you were thirsty. You must be so exhausted." He then put the lamb on his shoulders and carried the lamb back. God said, if you're able to tend animalistic, actual sheep with such care and overwhelming love, by your life, I swear you shall also be the shepherd of my sheep, the shepherd of Israel as well. The Medrash elsewhere continues about King David. States that King David was such a sharp shepherd. Try saying that 5 times fast. He was such a sharp shepherd that he took the baby sheep, the middle sheep, middle-aged, I don't know what a middle-aged sheep is, and the seniors, and he made sure to place them in different areas of the field so that the babies would have soft grass to be able to enjoy. And then the seniors would have a little bit stronger, but also soft grass. And then those that were of the greatest strength had the toughest, which exercised their muscles, etc. And God said, if you take care of physical sheep like this, then you're going to take care of my sheep as well. My Rebbe, Rabbi Wein, says that the most important characteristic for any Jewish leader on the planet is you have to love Jews. And it's not always easy to love Jews. Jews aren't always so lovable. But if you don't love Jews, then you can't lead. If Moshe Rabbeinu was able to deal with the Jewish people for 40 years in the desert, he was accused of everything. He was accused of theft. He was accused of immorality. He was accused of killing his brother. He was accused of anything and everything. But he still got up in front of the world and said, Hashem, im ayin, if you are going to not sustain the Jewish people, mecheni na misifracha, take me out of your book. Because he loved the Jewish people. We're going to find in each one a tremendous love, Avas Yisrael, a derech eretz. They asked the question, we'll see when we get to it in a bunch of weeks, that our father Jacob hid away in a yeshiva of Shem ve'Aver for over a decade, 14 years. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky asked the question, what did they learn? There was no Torah yet. Stuck away in a yeshiva for there are a lot of people who stay in yeshiva for a long time and don't learn anything, right? But what did Yaakov Avinu do for 14 years? So Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky said they studied the intricacies of derech eretz, of appropriate behavior. First 26 generations of the world were all about derech eretz, of appropriate behavior, because derech eretz kadma laTorah. Before we could have any Torah in the world, there needed to be appropriate behavior, because when Torah rests on inappropriate behavior, it comes out stinky. I never saw it inside, but my Rebbe, Rabbi Moshe Chait, Zichrono Livracha, quoted a Yalkut Shimoni that said that a Talmud Chacham, somebody who knows lots of Torah and doesn't behave with ethical excellence, smells worse than dead fowl. Says it all right there. Okay. There's a well-known to me Ruach Chaim, Reb Chaim Volozhiner, who gives a commentary on our spiritual heritage, particularly of Avraham Avinu. Because as I said a few moments ago, there's a concept of physical genetics. Everyone here has the color eyes that they do because of previous generations. They have their bodily strengths and challenges based on physical genetics. There's something called spiritual genetics as well. The drives that get into us. So in the 5th chapter of Avot, of Pirkei Avos, chapter 5, Mishnah 4, the Mishnah states, Asara nisyonos nisnasa Avraham Avinu va'amad bekulam. 10 tests, which we're going to speak about today. 10 tests was our father Abraham tested, and he withstood and transcended them all. Va'amad bekulam. I believe Reb Chaim Volozhiner focuses on the word Avinu. Why does it say Avraham Avinu? In previous Mishnahs, it doesn't say. It says 10 generations from Noach until Abraham. It doesn't say until Avraham Avinu, Avraham our father. Why in this Mishnah does it say that these 10 challenges was tested Avraham Avinu, our father? He says, you want to know why? He says, because when Avraham transcended, passed with flying colors, each one of those tests, the desire, passion, and drive that was within him is what got transmitted to subsequent generations also. According to the Midrash we'll speak about, Avraham Avinu was thrown into a furnace for the sake of believing in God. Way too many Jews in the history of the world have been thrown into furnaces saying Shema Yisrael. How did they have the wherewithal to do such a thing? They got it from Avraham Avinu. They say Yimach Shemam that the German officers in the crematoria standing outside knew Shema Yisrael by heart, because they heard it all day when the Jews were being flung in. The first Jew to ever make the pilgrimage from one side of the world to the other to live in the land that God has given to the Jewish people, Lech Lecha, was Avraham Avinu, which is why for the last 2,000 years there's been such a passion, a mission for Jews to go to Israel. When people go away to Israel and they come back, it's like they saw Mashiach. How was Israel? Well, what could have been bad? A lot of things could have been bad. The weather could have been bad. I could have gotten stomach viruses. I could have had terrible tour guides. A million things could have been. What could have been bad? The romance, the great desire for Jews in the Jewish homeland comes from our father Abraham. Final example, when I was in college, might be the reason why I'm here right now. When I was a senior in college, I took a graduate level psychology course by a professor, he's probably not alive, his name is Dr. Murray Cohen. Okay, it's Murray Cohen, right? Dr. Murray Cohen, he was a Cohen. He was the last living Freudian. Like he actually believed that everything that Freud said had truth in it. Okay, unbelievable. And this course was all about the teachings of Freud. And everybody had to pick one thing in life and do an expose or a great research into what would Freud have said about X, Y, and Z. So I chose to do what would Freud have said about circumcision. Okay? And I had my father in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, video, not the actual circumcision, but from a distance, the circumcision, the bris ceremony. And in front of my entire college course, I showed the video of, not the actual procedure, but of a bris. And I still remember, it was the first time I ever encountered it directly, that there were people in the room on the college campus who were incredibly offended by circumcision, because how dare we mutilate the body of a baby without consent? How dare we take away from the natural creation of a human being and decide for them something that's very hard for them to ever get back, although nowadays you can do any type of surgery, right? Already in Greek times they tried to put the bris milah back on, Moshech bar Lasso. And the truth of the matter is that if you think about it, bris milah is kind of difficult. You know, in Hasidic circles, a lot of mothers don't go to their son's bris because it's too painful to hear the kid cry. Right? It's not an easy thing to take a little baby and do surgery with minimal anesthetic or no anesthetic. Right? And we're serving bagels and lox. And we're singing Urevana Levanecha. And we're so excited about bringing him into the covenant of Avraham Avinu. You want to know why for the last 5,000 years Jews get excited about bris milah? Because Avraham Avinu put that into us. If he could do it at 199 years old, right? And there were people who didn't want him to do it. Surrounding neighbors were going to get up and fight him. You're not allowed to follow God's will like that. And it's one thing that most, if not all, of the Jewish people still gets excited about. The Gemara talks about it. Of all walks, of all flavors, of all denominations, people still get excited about a bris. Why? Avraham Avinu. So my professor, Murray Cohen, when I was over, I don't know if I inspired him about Judaism or not, but he said, you know, you're a really good teacher. I think you should consider being in teaching. Right, so Murray Cohen gets an assist on today's class. So that's what Avraham Avinu did for us. He put into us from his dealings, from his passions, from his life mission that we still experience today as part of our default emotional positions, which is an amazing thing. And it's not just him. It's all the shepherds and the imahos. So we're going to talk about that. In fact, there's a well-known statement, Ma'aseh Avot Siman Labanim. Whatever happened to our forefathers is a projection, a symbol, a reflection of what's going to happen to us for all time. As King Solomon stated, Ein chadash tachat hashemesh. There's nothing new under the sun. Even if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have microwaves, and even if Avraham Avinu couldn't surf the internet, the people are still the same. Okay? So that's our spiritual heritage. There's an anagram here on the bottom of page 1 based on the verse in Genesis, I believe in the 2nd chapter, that says, Eila toldos hashamayim v'ha'aretz. These are the generations of the heaven and the earth. Behi baram, when they were created. B'yom asos Hashem Elokim eretz v'shamayim. In the day that God made earth and heaven. Chazal say, the sages say, that there's a secret in that word, Behi baram. If you look in the Hebrew, I underlined it for those Hebrew readers. Behi baram, Chazal say, Al tikrei Behi baram ela ba'Avraham. Avraham's name is that word because the world was created for an Abraham. That without Avraham Avinu, the world wouldn't have been able to develop the way that it is today, for good or for better. There's even a medrash that states that God considered making Avraham Avinu, in the beginning, by Adam. But he chose not to in case the world needed to be destroyed. Couldn't be. Once Avraham came, the world changed. Turn the page over, and on the next page you have to turn it upside down because we're following Rabbi Schaffer's class of Inahapochu. And Lamaisa, the secretary's not here today, and I don't know how to do it the other way. My computer doesn't work. So we just saw the 10 tests of Avraham Avinu referenced, and they are what has enabled Avraham to become Avraham. I write, Avraham brought the world from the era of vacuous emptiness towards the era of Torah truth. The world is meant to be 6,000 years at most until Messiah Mashiach comes. We're at 5780. We're getting close. 220 years left, max. Right? And come tomorrow if we behave. Okay? First 2,000 years were considered to be years of tohu, of emptiness. There was no Torah in the world. The second 2,000 years were the years of Torah. And the last 2,000 years, which we're in right now, are the years that prepare for Mashiach, for redemption. So, it is by coincidence that Avraham was born in the year 1948. 1948 from zero, from creation. When he was 52 years old, he discovered God. At least in its fullness. We're going to talk about that. But I have in front of us two listings of the 10 tests, because all of Jewish pedagogy is filled and ripe with the opportunity for dispute. So everything in both cases are reported as truth, both Maimonides and Rabbeinu Ovadia Be'Bar Tanura. Rashi also, I think, in the Art Scroll is brought. But it's just that there were 10 tests. It says it in the Mishnah. Question is, what were those 10 tests? And Maimonides generally looks right into the text of the Torah itself, whereas the others also appreciate and bring into it the narratives from Chazal as well, from the Midrashim. So, for example, Maimonides' first test of Avraham is Lech Lecha, is go and leave your land. Rabbeinu Ovadia Me'Bar Tanura says no, his first test was that he was thrown into the fiery furnace, because that is hinted to in the Torah, but not said explicitly, and therefore it's a dispute if it's one of the 10. You'll take this home and you'll have the opportunity to review what each one of the 10 tests were. But now we get back to the discussion that we started in the beginning of our lecture. If Avraham is the one who reflected kindness, God's kindness into the world, there are a bunch of things in these 10 tests that don't necessarily reflect kindness as you and I would expect to see on a Hallmark card, right? Number 5 in the bottom, he faces incredible odds in the battle of the kings, of the 4 and the 5 kings. Right? There's the great covenant. He's told by God that his children will be strangers in a strange land, right? America. God tells him to circumcise himself. His wife is captured twice. Send away, right? Number 9 on the bottom and number 9 above. Right? God tells him to send away Hagar and her son Ishmael up above. His son Ishmael becomes estranged. God tells him to sacrifice his son Isaac, which is a potential lecture all into itself. But what on earth does this have to do with kindness? If Abraham's midah is chesed, if we never learn divine loving kindness without Abraham, then he should have been the most smiley, patting on the back, delivering newspapers and coffee. What do these things about? Just to take a sidestep for a moment. You know, if I ask any of you, what color hair did Abraham have, could you answer? If you could, I want to know. Anybody know how tall Abraham was? His favorite baseball team? His favorite color? We don't know that much about the foibles and the likes and the dislikes of our forefathers and mothers. Because they don't really matter. What matters are the tests that he faced in life and was able to transcend. In fact, the Ramban asks the great question, why on earth would God give Abraham or any of us a test? Right? It's a great book by Rebbetzin Youngreis, Aleh Shalom, Life's a Test. Why did God give Abraham tests? Is that what we're here for, to pass the test? And when a teacher gives a test in the school next door, it's because the teacher wants to know whether or not the child knows the information or not. And can they spit it out? God knows whether or not we know the information or not. God is all-knowing. God is here, there, everywhere, in all time, in all space. So what is the function, asked the Ramban, of a test? It says the function is not for the benefit of the one giving the test when it's a divine test. The function of the test is for the benefit of the one experiencing the test. It's an opportunity, it's a challenge to be able to make it to the next belt, so to speak. So much so that when Abraham made it to the 10th test, God said to him, listen, you made it so far. You've been so wonderful. If you do this, you will have arrived. And if you view life's challenges as a divine opportunity to make it to where I need to get to, and it's tailor-made for me, why does it have to happen to me? Is not the question we ask. It's what opportunity do I have now that I'm dealing with the challenge in front of me? And then I can emerge and become like Avraham Avinu emerged and became. And that is the goal of a divine test. But where's the kindness? So we'll see next week several examples of Abraham's kindness that the Torah tells us about. But I'd like to share with you the Medrash brought in Kitei Midrashim that Avraham Avinu found God through kindness. How did Avraham Avinu find God in a world where God didn't exist? Because God was elusive. God was lost by the previous generations. The Maimonides says in the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah that first they knew about God, then they descended and thought maybe God put the power into the sun and the moon, so they started worshiping the sun and the moon and the stars, and then it descended into idols, right? So it got lost. How did Abraham himself begin to get it? So the Medrash says that when he was a small child, he looked up at the sun and wondered, if there's a sun, is there a sun maker? Is there a force that brought the sun and the world into existence? But then the sun set and the moon rose. Said, no, it couldn't be the sun. Maybe there's a sun maker. Abraham then asked if the moon and the stars could be the heavenly forces guiding the world, but the night ended and the sun returned. In time, Abraham looked up and recognized that there must be a force of all forces. There must be a genesis and a generator of that genesis. The perfect design implies a perfect designer. And only an infinite God could have created a universe of such infinite beauty and precision. King David brings in his Tehillim, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. The world was built with kindness. God doesn't need us. He has plenty to do without us. He didn't need it. He gifted the world to the occupants of the world to be able to share his kindness. And therefore, Abraham experienced that kindness. You know, there are certain people who just really get touched when you give them a gift. Right? You know who they are. Everybody has people in their life, right? My mother has certain people in our family that she likes to give gifts to more than others. She gives everybody the same amount, but she loves, because there are certain people that are just so touched when they receive that gift. It's so thoughtful, right? That's how Abraham felt when he looked up at the sun, the moon, and the stars. Abraham found God through the reflection of kindness. It's not the subject of our lecture this morning, but the passport for an enjoyable life is gratitude. And gratitude comes when I can recognize kindness that is done for me. Nobody deserved to wake up this morning. Nobody has a contract. If Hashem gave us vision and breath this morning, how can we not wake up and say, Modeh Ani? Thankful am I that I have another day to fulfill my mission in this world. And how do I know what my mission is? I got it from my shepherds. Turn to page 3. On page 3, we see a little genealogy. The father of Abraham is Terach. Abraham had 2 brothers, Nahor and Haran. There is a dispute on whether or not Abraham was the oldest or the youngest. We generally hold in the Talmud that he was the oldest. However, in the Sefer HaYashar and elsewhere, and in the Seder HaDoros, there's an opinion that he was the youngest, and it has a compelling, and it really doesn't matter, but it's important to know that there are differences of opinion. Now let's talk about his family for a moment. I know a Jew who, when he was on his journey to try to become more observant, he had real problems with his parents. Because there are certain Jewish parents in the world that would rather have their children get involved in all types of things, but God forbid they should become more observant. So this Jew went to a very special Gadol B'Torah. His name was Rav Mordechai Schwab, Zichrono Livracha, a student of Rav Baruch Ber at a yeshiva in Monsey, New York, the brother of the great Rav Shimon Schwab, and he had another brother in Gateshead. And he went to Rav Mordechai Schwab, they sat across the table, and the young Jew looked at him and said, I got real problems with my family. All I want to do is start keeping mitzvot more carefully and study the Torah, and they're giving me headaches. Rav Mordechai leaned over the table, he says, you think you have problems? He says, Avram's father sold idols for a living. You don't have so many problems. And look how great he turned out. Okay? Terach was an idol salesman. That was his job. And I want to read to you, I'm going to sight read for you what happened when Abraham was born according to a Rishon, the Seder HaDoros. Sight read meaning I'm going to read in Hebrew and translate in English. You don't have it there. On the night that Abraham was born, all the servants of Terach and all the sages of Nimrod, right? Not the shoe salesman, the king, and all of his magicians were together, eating and drinking and celebrating in the house of Terach. And when they went outside, they looked up to the heavens and saw the stars were in an odd formation. They saw one star that was so great that came from the east, and it ran across the heaven and swallowed 4 other stars from 4 directions. They were bewildered and they said, oh no, your child, Terach, is a child that's going to grow up proliferate, become great, and inherit the earth. In the morning they told this to the king, and they said to the king, right, you should pay Terach a ton of money for his kid and kill him, because he's going to bring havoc to the world. And the king said, great idea. And they called Terach, and he said, can you give me your kid and I'll kill him. I'll give you a lot of money before he grows up and wreaks havoc. I'll give you anything you want. And Terach said, I don't, right, anything you give me, you give to your servant, but I'll tell you what's going to happen to me. Yesterday, I had a son, and he grew up. And you'll give me a horse. That'll be great. And the king gave him a horse, and he gave him a lot of gold and silver and a lot of feed for the animals. And I'm going to tell people this great advice that you gave to the king. Basically, Terach said, I don't want your money. And the king got angry at Terach and called him a fool, and said to him, you're going to burn, and you're missing intellect, and therefore I'm not even going to give you the gold and the silver. And Terach said, don't get upset, king. Give me a few days to consider what will happen. And the king gave him 3 days, and after 3 days, Terach got so scared when the king sent for him and said, give me your son, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you and everyone in your house, and there won't even be any walls left in your home. Terach went ahead and he took another child from one of his servants, and he gave that child instead of Abraham. And Nimrod killed that child, smashed his skull open, as they used to do in the ancient times, and unfortunately in our world today we have killers as well. But he thought that he got Avram and he got rid of his nemesis. But nobody knew for the next 50 years that Abraham was still alive. And they hid him away in a cave. And I have a few chronological biographical remarks here on the bottom. Number one, 3 different opinions. When he was 3, 48, or 52, he discovered God. Okay, when he was 48, I believe, was when the time that the Tower of Babel took place. See, we don't always appreciate the context. We read the story of Adam and the story of Noah and the flood and the Tower of Babel and then Abraham, and we learn ethical insights into each one of them, but we don't necessarily recognize the historical relationship between one and the other. Abraham was living at the time of the Tower of Babel, and he saw all the people's languages change in front of his eyes, which was the result then, therefore, of him understanding there's a God in the world. When he was 3 years old, he began to question. He began to reject the ways of his grandfather, Nahor. He knew it was a bunch of, it didn't sound right. Every once in a while, when I have conversion candidates, and they come and they talk to me, they say that something happened when they were young. They realized that the whole Trinity, it just didn't make sense to them, right? Virgin Mary, how could it be, blah, blah, blah. Like they had beginnings of understanding before they research it further. And that's when he started. And then when he's 52, he started sharing the word. Now what's fascinating to note is that Abraham knew Noah. He spent 58 years on earth together with Noah, says the Ibn Ezra. You want to know how I know it's 58? Because Noah is 58, Nun Ches. Okay, that's how the Ibn Ezra says, that's how you remember how many years they spent together on earth. And Shem, and he studied with them. When he was born, after he was saved from that encounter, he was placed on the lap of his grandfather Nahor to learn idol worship. He resisted. They hid him for 13 years underground because they wanted to kill him. Then, when he came out, they put him in jail for 10 years, before eventually he was thrown into that furnace. According to the Talmud, he was the oldest of 3 brothers, and his youngest, Haran, which we can speak about, died in a copycat attempt of worship. At the age of 48 or 70 according to Rashi, 48 according to the Seder Adoros, was the covenant of the parts, the Bris Bein HaBesarim, which means it took place at least 5 years before Lech Lecha. We have a tendency to believe, because we read the narrative in the Chumash, that first Abraham went to Israel and then afterwards God came to him and made the covenant. But no, the covenant took place first. The age of 75 he left home. The age of 99 bris milah. In our generations, the last 2 or 3 generations, we have seen modern day Avraham Avinu in our world, where unfortunately Russian Jews who were not permitted or didn't know about the mitzvah of Brit Milah have come to this country, and at senior ages have had surgery to be able to do the mitzvah of Brit Milah. There's somebody in our shul here that I know, our chazan, our cantor, went with him and held his hand for 4 hours while the Moel surgically, with a lot of anesthesia, was able to do the mitzvah of Brit Milah. Because without the mitzvah of Brit Milah, you're still Jewish, but according to Torah teachings, you're not supposed to be able to learn Torah. You're not be able to your mitzvot aren't the same. Your liable punishments. Brit Milah is very important. Father didn't do it for you when you were 8 days old, then it becomes your responsibility. We have seen the strength of Avraham Avinu in our generation. The age of 137, he passes the final test of his son Isaac, being God asking him to put him on the altar. And then soon after, his wife dies, and right then his father died earlier as well. And at the age of 175, he passes in a complete sated state. Right? Even though we have much to learn about Abraham next week, I want to talk about his passing for one moment. If you could turn in your Chumashim to page number 120. On page 120, verse 8, the final verse on the page, it says there, Vayamas Avraham b'seva tova zokein v'saveya v'yasef el amav. How's that for an obituary? And our father Abraham passed, expired, and died at a good old age, mature and content, before he was gathered into his people. How often do we hear of a person that is actually in a sated, content place? Like it says in the Torah that Avraham v'Sarah skenim ba'im bayamim. They grew into their age. In the legal field, there's a concept of a 40-minute hour, a 50-minute hour, or a 60-minute hour. And if you want to know what that is, look at your bill from the lawyer. Right? If the lawyer gave you a 40-minute hour, then you have to pay 40 minutes, etc. Abraham lived 175 years of 60-minute hours. And when he died, the Ramban says it's not an easy thing to die happy. It's not an easy thing to die knowing I made the most of my time. Death is a threshold to a next existence. Reuven, if you can handle it, stay a few more minutes. It's almost done. If you can't, I get it if you're hungry. Okay? Trust me. Okay? Ramban says it's not a small matter that Avraham was able to go to the next world with a sense of satisfaction. Move to the final page, a few more little pieces. Page 82, you can keep your Chumash open. On page 82, we know why Avraham chose God. He recognized his kindness. Why did God choose Abraham? By the time Abraham came along, there were a lot of people in the world. What was it about Avraham Avinu that God chose him? Page 82, verse 19. Ki yidati, because I know about Abraham, says God. I love him. I know about Abraham. Laman asher yitzava es banav es beso, that he's going to command and direct his children and his household after him to guard the pathways of God, to do righteousness and justice. And that is the reason why. Abraham, Hashem knew in Abraham he had a partner. He knew that Abraham was going to teach the world monotheism in a polytheistic world. Few more fascinating details. Abraham was the fourth link in the chain. Okay? There was Adam. Adam lived 930 years according to the Torah. In his final years, he met Noach's father, Lamech. Lamech, which means fool, Lamech had Noach, which means that Noach knew somebody that lived in the Garden of Eden. Believe me, Adam told everybody about what it was like before he was cast out of the Garden of Eden. And Abraham knew Noach for 58 years, which means Abraham knew someone that was created by God. It's an amazing thing. My Rebbe, Rabbi Wein, likes to say that before his father passed away, Rabbi Zev Wein, at the table, at his Seder table, was 300 years. Because his father, Rabbi Zev Wein's father, studied in Volozhin under Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner, who was the student of the Vilna Gaon, who was in the late 1700s. And he'd sit there at the Seder table with his great-grandson, who's going to live deep into the 21st century. So you got 300 years at one Seder table. So then Rabbi Wein would say, all you need is 10 more tables and you're back at Sinai. Right? You don't need that many tables to get back to Mount Sinai. It's not so long ago. It is long ago, but Avraham Avinu knew firsthand somebody that heard about the creation of the world. Avram became Avraham and shepherded the world into monotheism. The Meiri, the great German Rishon, writes that Avraham touched 10% of the world without email, without blasts. It's an amazing thing that Avraham was able to touch 10% of the world. I'm not saying that he converted 10% of the world, but he brought the world to an understanding of God. Okay? Finally, he's called Avraham HaIvri. Avraham HaIvri means Avraham from Aver, from the place Aver, descendant of the person Aver, but it also means, say Chazal, HaIvri, he stood on one side of the river and the rest of the world stood on the other side of the river. That because of Abraham, we have any type of ethical monotheism in the world today. And by a stroke of providence, I saw on the news this morning that in Italy, on Monday, 2 days ago, was a multi-faith gathering between Jews, Christians, and Sunni Muslims. Take a look at the picture. You see there the three monotheistic faiths in the world, and they signed a document thought up by Dr. Avraham Steinberg to do this in Israel, that all the monotheistic faiths should sign a document against euthanasia, against mercy killing. You want to know why this past Monday in Rome, representatives of the three monotheistic faiths of the world got together to sign a document against needless killing? Because you could convince anybody of anything if you advocate it. The world that we live in today, don't get me started, is so different than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, of what's considered to be normative and what's considered to be acceptable. And that's only because of what's been advocated. Well, Abraham advocated God's truth. And it's only because of Abraham that that there was a meeting in Rome this week that the three major faiths on the planet are against mercy killing. That's all because of Abraham. Abraham is still shepherding the world today in the year 5780. We don't make a move. It says that when the king of Sodom said to Abraham, I'll give you all the spoils, and Abraham said, I won't even take a shoelace from your spoils, sages say that's why we got the mitzvah of tzitzis. He didn't take spoils, he didn't even want a shoelace. We get tzitzis that could look like a shoelace. Talmud says that even though God didn't give Abraham the whole Torah, Abraham figured it out, which we could talk about in the weeks to come. But we should stand tall together with all Jews that we are the direct descendants of our mother Sarah and our father Abraham. I want to end by bringing the Gemara in Yevamos that asks the great question about our forefathers and mothers. It says, why did God create them that they all had fertility challenges? Every single one, right? Avram and Sarah couldn't have kids till they were 190. Right? He was 100, she was 90. Yitzchak, Rachel, even Leah, according to the Ran. Everybody had fertility problems. And not only did they have fertility problems, they were born miraculously. So the Gemara gives the answer. You want to know why? So the Gemara says, because God likes to hear the prayers of the righteous. Well, at first glance, that could sound like a little bit self-centered of God. I like to hear the prayers of the righteous, so I'll make them pray to me before they have kids. Right? I remember when we first got married, my wife and I went to the hospital, Miskav Ladach, which is not there anymore, I don't think. And we had an appointment with a doctor. And in the next room was a woman giving birth without anesthesia. My poor wife, a newlywed, listening to a woman in the next room giving birth without anesthesia, listening to the labor pains. Right? So Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky says, no, that's not what it means that God wants to hear the prayers of the righteous and he feels good listening to praise. It's that God wanted that the children of Israel should all be born out of a plethora of prayers of the righteous. That the Jewish people are a miracle people. We don't belong here. It makes no sense that a little Jew from Ur Kasdim can have the impact 5,780 years later to the world that we should make a monotheistic paper against euthanasia. It doesn't make sense why this little Jewish people are still around on Torah anytime, learning Torah around the world when we've watched all the great powers of the world, from Greece to Rome to Babylonia to Persia and all the great kingdoms. I heard in the name of my Rebbe says in history that when Herzl wanted to build the state of Israel, he went to the Kaiser Wilhelm, and I believe he was stating, he said that Israel could never be reformed unless the four major empires in the world would fall. Well, guess what? All four empires fell. All the empires fell, but the teachings of our shepherds are still alive and well every single day of our lives. Thank you very much for coming, and have a wonderful day.